über allen.
What can Rammstein's new single Deutschland teach you about German grammar? That's right, I'm jumping on the bandwagon. Sure, I'm a week or two behind, but you all seem interested in it, so I guess I will address it. Rammstein dropped a new single for the first time in 10 years and are planning one last album before they retire. After 30 years of Rammstein, the era of the heavy-hitting German rock is coming to an end. Okay, not really. There are plenty of other German rock bands out there, and they have been filling in this vacuum that Rammstein left when they decided not to make another album between 2009's Liebe ist für alle da and the yet-to-be-named album that is set to come out later this year. That being said, I'm not going to simply copy what others have done. That would be dumb and lazy. Besides that, I think Vlog Dave has done an excellent job looking at the lyrics and showing you what this song and video are about and showing it to you in a cultural context. I'll link all of his videos about this song in the description down below in case you haven't seen them yet. While I do find these videos and the analysis of the lyrics interesting, and I loved his videos about this, I'm going to take this in a different direction. If you haven't figured it out yet, I'm a bit of a German grammar nerd. I find it entertaining to dissect German grammar in a sentence, phrase, paragraph, or in this case, a song. Today I'm going to go through the lyrics with a fine-toothed comb and show you what Rammstein can teach you about German grammar. Some of those things will be pretty basic, like personal pronouns and conjugation, but others will be more in-depth. If you didn't already know this, the personal pronoun du translates as you, and it's used to talk directly to one person with whom you are familiar. It's also used with young children and animals. This first line is likely meant to evoke memories of one of Rammstein's most famous songs, Du hast, but simply translates as you have. It's the start of the perfect tense in German, which uses either haben or sein as a helping verb, which is what is happening here. It also happens to be what happens in the song Du hast. This also is the only form of the verb haben in the entire song, so it isn't much help for the rest of the conjugation of this verb. In case you're curious, it is ich habe, du hast, sie es hat, wir haben, ihr habt, sie haben.
Hast viel geweint.
The second line finishes the perfect tense clause with the past participle geweint, which brings us to our overall meaning of you have cried a lot. This shows us an excellent example of a regular verb in the perfect tense, as it starts with ge and it ends with t. It also serves as a reminder that the past participle, the ge version of the verb, goes at the end of the clause.
Im Geist getrennt.
In this line we get another regular perfect tense past participle, getrennt. We also see a two-way preposition, also known as a Wechselpräposition, and it's used with the dative case here because it's showing a static location, im Geist. It's sort of a combination of in and dem, im.
Im Herz vereint.
Now we have a juxtaposition with the opposite verbs vereinen and trennen, and the nouns Geist and Herz. We're still using the perfect tense, which in this line does not have a ge at the beginning because of the ver, which is an inseparable prefix. The dative case is also used here because in is still being used with a static location.
Wir sind schon sehr lang zusammen.
I combine these two lines because without the second line, you wouldn't be able to understand why I translated sind and seid as have, even though they both are forms of the verb sein, which means to be. This is due to an annoying little thing in English called the present perfect progressive. It describes an action that started in the past and continues into the present. It is often possible that this action continues into the future. In German, this is expressed through the present tense and is highlighted by the words schon sehr lang, which means already so long. The present tense in German simply states that something is still going on at that moment. The additional information that is expressed in the English through the present perfect progressive tense is expressed in the three words schon sehr lang in German, which tells us when the action occurred.
Dein Atem kalt, das Herz in Flammen.
These two lines are another juxtaposition, this time with the words kalt and heiß. While this is great for building basic vocabulary, it isn't much to talk about grammatically. There is another two-way preposition used with the dative case, in Flammen, although in this phrase it really isn't that important that it's dative. In English we can use the same preposition in to say something is in flames, but it's more common to say on fire. The verb that is omitted here is also different in German. In English we say something is on fire with the verb to be, but in German you say it steht in Flammen, indicating that it stands in flames. This line is incredibly simple, but at least it shows you the do form of the verb können, the modal auxiliary that means can or to be able to in English. There isn't a secondary verb in this sentence, so it's left up to the listener to decide what it is that you can. While we're on the topic of können, it's a good time to remind you that the rest of the conjugation of this verb looks like this. Ich kann, du kannst, sie, es kann, wir können, ihr könnt, sie können. Another simple line, this one shows us the ich form of the verb wissen, which is another strangely conjugated verb. It sort of acts like a modal auxiliary verb in its conjugation, as the singular forms are all irregular, and the ich and sie forms are the same. That being said, it cannot be used as an auxiliary, meaning that this verb is used on its own as opposed to being used with another one. The full conjugation looks like this. Ich weiß, du weißt, sie, es weiß, wir wissen, ihr wisst, sie wissen, sie wissen. This line is very similar to the one that we said earlier with wir sind, but this time we don't know if the rest of the sentence is going to force us to use the present perfect progressive in English or not, so I chose to use the normal translation of sein as to be, therefore we are. If you're curious about the rest of the conjugation of this verb, some of the forms show up later in this song, but for now, here's the full conjugation. Ich bin, du bist, sie, es ist, wir sind, ihr seid, sie sind. This one also does not offer much in terms of German grammar. It's just a nice reminder that ihr is the informal plural version of you in German, and the conjugation of the verb requires a T. And now for the chorus. Now we finally get to the chorus, where we find out the reason this song is called Deutschland. It brings back the heart of flames line from before, but this time we see that it's the speaker's heart that is in flames. This is likely meant to be figurative, as it has to do with passion. The next line is packed full of great grammar bits. First of all, it's a continuation of the previous line, which is why we use the ses form of the verb wollen, will. The full conjugation is ich will, du willst, sie, es will, wir wollen, ihr wollt, sie wollen. There are also two opposing infinitives at the end of the respective parts of the clause. Both lieben and verdammen are used in their infinitive form because of the modal auxiliary wollen. Modal auxiliaries always force the secondary verb to the end of the sentence as the infinitive form. We also get a glimpse at the accusative case personal pronouns with the example of dich. This is used because Deutschland is being addressed with the do form, but it is the direct object of the sentence, the thing being loved or damned, making it accusative. In case you were curious, here are the rest of the accusative personal pronouns compared with their nominative case counterparts. Ich in nominative changes to mich in accusative. Du changes to dich. To ihn. Sie stays sie. Es stays es. Wir becomes uns. Ihr becomes euch. And sie both stay the same at the bottom. Sie and sie. We have seen this line before, but now we get the identity of the entity that has the cold breath. Now we know that Germany is the one with cold breath. So far in the song, we've only seen two possessive articles, mein and dein. Possessive articles are technically genitive pronouns. Semantics aside, they have a direct relationship with the nominative personal pronouns. If ich has something, it's mein. If du has something, it's dein. If you follow that logic, the following chart will make sense. Ich, mein, my. Du, dein, your. Er, sein, his. Sie, ihr, her. Es, sein, its. Wir, unser, our. Ihr, euer, your. Sie, ihr, their. Sie, ihr, your.
So jung und doch so alt.
This line isn't very helpful grammatically, but it does have a cool meaning culturally. Germany is a relatively young country, as it wasn't until 1990 when they officially became one country again, but it also is really old as it's been around for centuries in various forms. Oh look, the title of the song again. Here we simply start the next verse with the first person singular pronoun ich and the du hast line that I've already explained.
Ich will dich nie verlassen.
Another example of the modal auxiliary wollen in action, this time with the infinitive of the verb verlassen at the end of the clause as our secondary verb. We also get another example of the accusative pronoun dich, as the you to which he is referring is the direct object of the clause again, the one being left. The second half of the line is just a gentle reminder that the du form requires st at the end.
Man kann sich lieben.
More examples of modal auxiliaries, this time können, which we have already seen and discussed in this song. Again, the infinitive lieben is at the end of the clause because of the modal auxiliary. We also have another example of the pronoun dich, as you are the one being loved. The word man is often misunderstood as to what it really is. It's a pronoun, but it's used as a generic pronoun rather than er or sie. It still uses that form of the verb as it's still a singular thing, but it is a pronoun in that it replaces a noun, although the exact noun that is being replaced is either not known or unnecessary for the sentence. The second half reminds us again that the du form requires an st at the end of the verb.
Und will dich hassen.
More modal auxiliary examples with wollen and the infinitive hassen at the end. This one looks like it's lacking a subject, but it's actually using the subject man from the previous line.
Überheblich, überlegen, übernehmen, übergeben, überraschen, überfallen.
I'm going to take these three lines completely apart, as each one has a cool effect that is being used. The word or prefix über has a kind of cult following in the English-speaking parts of the world. We seem to think that it makes everything bigger, better, or stronger. It tends to have a bit of a Nazi connotation in English, which is why I think it's an odd choice for a ride-sharing app. Rammstein is using this understanding to evoke those feelings from English speakers who have no idea what they're talking about, and using it for other reasons for the German speakers. For those who know what these words mean, there is also a wartime, if not Nazi connotation, as they are used in a fashion that can only be interpreted that way. The word über does take things to another level, as English speakers assume, but it is done in a different way than one might think. I'll show you what I mean.
Überheblich.
This word at its base comes from the verb heben, which means to hoist or lift. The prefix über makes it to hoist above or lift above, but this adjective means more that someone thinks that they are higher up than someone else. You're looking down on others from your ivory tower.
Überlegen.
Here we have a bit of interpretation to be done. The verb legen means to lay, but when you put über in front of it, it becomes to consider, deliberate, or ponder. As an adjective, however, it means superior, outstanding, or sovereign. This leaves a huge space for interpretation. Either it's a verb and he's saying that Germany is considerate, or he's using it as an adjective, which I find more likely, as the previous word was an adjective, and he means that Germany is superior, or at least it thinks it is, to other nations or people. It should be mentioned, however, that the rest of the über words that are on this list are more than likely verbs, which brings back more ambiguity into this line.
Übernehmen.
This one is a verb first and can be used as an adjective, but in this case we're simply looking at the infinitive of the verb übernehmen. Nehmen on its own means to take, but when you put über in front of it, it becomes to take over. The other translations I gave are used in a similar context. This is probably the most literally translatable word on this list.
Übergeben.
This is a pretty close opposite to the previous verb. Geben means to give, but when combined with über, it means to surrender. This is another great example of Rammstein showing two words next to each other that are not simply opposites in meaning, but also in construction. Giving versus taking, surrendering versus taking over. Even when broken apart, these words are opposites, and I find that cool. The word rasch is an adjective that means something is being done at a rapid pace. While you can't make this into a verb on its own, raschen isn't a real verb, when you add über into the mix, it becomes to surprise. This would literally be to overrush, which is kind of what happens when you surprise someone. The verb fallen means to fall, which doesn't seem to help much when you use the verb überfallen, which means to assault or attack or even to mug. Literally, it should be to fall over, but it's nowhere near that translation. This just shows the versatility of the word über, and it also gives us another interesting point of view from Rammstein. Since all of the previous words were separated out and had helpful meanings, the last one shows that Rammstein wants you to pay attention to the falling aspect as well as the assaulting aspect of this verb. While Germany has been on the attacking end of a lot of history, that also came with a subsequent fall, which I think Rammstein is trying to draw attention to through this prefix über and its repetition.
Deutschland, Deutschland über allen.
This is a play on the oft misinterpreted words of the old German national anthem, Deutschland, Deutschland über alles. This line is no longer actually sung, as only the third verse of the song is the national anthem of Germany, and this line is not in there. The reason it is often misinterpreted is the word über again. This time we see über alles, which many people misinterpret as Germany standing over everyone else, as in superiority. When using the accusative case in the song, however, it shows that Germany is supposed to be above all other things in the hearts of the people and not in terms of conquering the world. When using the dative case, as Rammstein did in their version, the meaning is that Germany is superior to all others. The case system is very important in this line. Chorus, this time modified. Most of the chorus is the same, but towards the end they change things in significant ways. After the line so jung und doch so alt, there are some new lines. Here's a nice reminder that Liebe is a feminine noun. Also building vocabulary again with Fluch and Segen. I often mix up Fluch and Flucht, which are not the same. Fluch is a curse, but Flucht is an escape. I blame Johnny Depp for this confusion. The Pirates of the Caribbean films in German are called Fluch der Karibik. And when I read this out loud, I often let the words Fluch and der flow together, which makes it sound really similar to Flucht. Long story short, don't do like I do and mix up Fluch and Flucht. This sentence is awesome for grammar. Number one, it shows you the flexibility of German word order by starting the sentence with the direct object, meine Liebe. Number two, it shows us another example of a modal auxiliary with an infinitive at the end of the sentence. Number three, it shows us an indirect object as it's using the pronoun dir. This is the one receiving the direct object, which as I mentioned is meine Liebe. Number four, we have an example of negation in a sentence where it doesn't make sense to negate the noun. Since we need the possessive article meine in front of Liebe to identify the person to whom the love belongs, we are forced to negate the sentence through other means. In this case, they chose to negate it with the word nicht right before the infinitive geben. Also, since there is a pause in the song between meine Liebe and kann, Rammstein is again playing on that duality between loving and hating Germany. If you stop the sentence at Liebe, it sounds like he's addressing Deutschland as his love. But if you read the entire sentence, it becomes clear that the love is the direct object, which cannot be given to Germany. Another great duality of this song. And now for the bridge. In the beginning of the bridge, we get an almost complete list of personal pronouns in the nominative case. It is Rammstein's way of telling us that everyone is involved in the things that Germany is, was, or will be, but I just like it because it's a list of personal pronouns in German. Also, I think it's noteworthy that they never use the formal Sie in any portion of this song. Their relationship to Germany is always used with the du form. The relationship to the audience, as shown here, is used with the du form as well. It shows a camaraderie or a sense of being on a level playing field with the others.
Übermächtig, überflüssig.
Now we start to get the reason for the list of pronouns from before. Those were simply introductions to the next 4 lines in which each pronoun is given a list of attributes to describe them. This first one is referring back to Germany as du, and it gives us 2 more über words. The first one, übermächtig, comes from the word mächtig, which is powerful. Add über into the mix, and you end up with overwhelming, overpowering, or superior. The second word, überflüssig, is an odd word to me, as the word flüssig on its own means liquid, fluid, or smooth. Add in the word über and you get unnecessary, wasteful, or redundant. It could even be translated as disposable or expendable.
Übermenschen, überdrüssig.
The word Übermensch is a reference to Nietzsche's ideal man that was supposed to replace the modern morality with a higher morality. It's most commonly used now as a misinterpretation of the original meaning of Übermensch by the Nazis, who thought that the Übermensch was a person who is better than the others, as in the Aryan race. There is no word drüssig, but the word überdrüssig means weary or sick or tired. Again, the opposite of the first word. It could mean that he is tired of the Übermenschen, but it really isn't clear here.
Wer hochsteigt, der wird tief fallen.
There are 3 fun grammar bits in this line. The word wer is being used as an introductory word for a clause that is not a question, but rather an identifier for a person, which is acting as a conjunction. This causes our verb in that clause, steigt, to go to the end of the clause instead of next to the subject, which is also our conjunction, wer. The second interesting bit is the use of the word der as a demonstrative pronoun. This is essentially a definite article that is used as a pronoun. This makes us use the er/sie/es form of the verb werden. The last grammar bit in this line is the use of werden, which is used to form the future tense in German. This is used like the modal auxiliaries that I've mentioned before, in that it pushes the other verb to the end of the sentence or clause as the infinitive form.
Deutschland, Deutschland, über allen.
Those are all of the German grammar topics that you can glean from Rammstein's new song Deutschland. If you want more information about any of these grammar topics that I mentioned in this video, I have links in the description to videos that I've made about all of these topics, as well as links to the official music video for this song and an explanation from Dominic from Get Germanized that explains the German lyrics to the national anthem in more detail than I did here. You can also find the videos that I mentioned at the beginning of this video from Vlog Dave. I also made a playlist of all of the videos that I think you should watch about Rammstein's new song Deutschland. Click this link and you can start with the official video and work your way through knowing everything you will ever need to know about this song, the upcoming album, the lyrics, and the history.